Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some Toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 107 of Toss, the Tristain Sports Show. It is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. This week, we've got some big Packers news. Big to those people who have been under a rock, but if you've been rocking with us, you already know what it is. What happens now as a result of these big news items? The Bucks went through a gauntlet last week. How did they do? Where did they go from here? And then the Toss sweep, we got to talk about Brittney Griner. Free her immediately. We'll get into it. And some more NFL news, some more big news that has happened with other teams. But you know how we get things started here on Toss. We get things started with the state of the state. And let's start off with those big news items from the Green Bay Packers. If, as I said before in the rundown, if you've been living under a rock, you don't know what's going on. If you've been rocking with Toss, which if you're listening, thank you so much, because you have been all around the world. We love you so much for it. You'll know that these items are things that we have been talking about for weeks now here on this program. And we've said it. Hey, if anybody says anything with absolute certainty, do not believe them. But there is some chatter and there is some truth to a little bit about what's going on. We relayed on this program that there was framework for Aaron Rodgers to come back. And I've said it time and time again that I fully believe that Aaron Rodgers would be back in a Green Bay uniform. What that looks like in various forums and discussions and in other places, I've said, hey, it probably will end up being like a 1-and-1 deal. They may make it look like a long-term deal, but in actuality, it's a 1-and-1 deal. 1 year guaranteed. Another one is an option to see where they stand, where they fit with each other. And then you're going to add some void years into that to get there to where Rodgers would like to be, which is he wants to be compensated for the quarterback that he believes he is, and he's a back-to-back MVP. 4 times over the NFL MVP. Should be paid as such. But he also wanted to retire a Green Bay Packer. And with this deal, now Rodgers has come out and said himself, but we'll talk about that in a second. The framework for the deal was about $50 million on average per year, which would make him the highest paid player in the NFL. And that's per year. I know everybody's looking at Patrick Mahomes' contract, but it doesn't shape out to what Rodgers' contract would be per year. It was originally reported by Ian Rappaport of NFL Network and even the NFL of themselves. Their various social media and their very own network. 4 years, $200 million. Now, that is consistent with what I had been told and what I had been hearing in the discussions that I've been having with people close to the situation. Again, information on anything dealing with Rodgers and the Packers, it's really difficult to discern what is 100% true and what is not. Some people may have various nuggets on it and you could connect the dots and say, okay, this is kind of where it's going. And other times it's like, I ain't buying it. After it was reported 4 years, $200 million with $153 million guaranteed. Rodgers himself, well, actually first Pat McAfee went on Ian Rappaport's tweet saying, hey, this is false. Not that Rodgers coming back to the Green Bay Packers was false, but the framework of the deal, the fact that a deal having been signed was false. The deal's not signed. The framework is still being worked out. There's supposed to be a quote-unquote team-friendly deal, and that's according to Aaron Rodgers himself. He came out with a tweet of its own saying that he has not yet signed a deal. The framework for the deal has not been completely laid out, but he is, in fact, returning. The framework will still be very much the same. This is really consistent with everything that I've been hearing. The language and how this deal looks is what will be different. If it's going to be team friendly, it means that he's going to get a lot of money up front. They're going to make the numbers way down as far as cap hits go. And you're talking maybe year 1, year 2, his cap hit is going to be nil. You're talking he'll be top 10, but not in a top 5. So it will end up being a very cap-friendly deal. Again, as I've said here on this program, on Toss, weeks ago, you're going to look at a lot of void years. You're going to look at very creative ways of getting him incentives. You're going to look at creative ways of getting him the most money up front on signing bonuses to make this as team-friendly and long-term as possible. Whatever the framework shakes out to be, you're looking at least 2 years, in my eyes, that you're going to have him guaranteed. If it is, in fact, a 4-year deal that shakes out to be the numbers that were reported to begin with before Rodgers refuted it. Again, you're looking at void years. Either way, the important thing is Aaron Rodgers is returning, as we had been saying all along on this very program. Wasn't just a gut feeling, it's just conversations that I had been having with people. Now, again, with Aaron Rodgers, you just don't know. When it comes to Rodgers and the front office of the Green Bay Packers, nobody really truthfully 100% knows. But when you talk to enough people and you get that feel, and you've been doing it for a while, you kind of put 2 and 2 together. And I've said it, and I've even said it on Talking Sports with Evan, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcast. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were on with him. And he asked me point blank, hey, does Rodgers come back? I'm like, yeah. 100%. He will be back. They have the pieces in place now, and we'll talk about that in a minute because they may not have very many of those pieces if these deals shake out. Now, you got Rodgers done, but they have the pieces in place to go and win a Super Bowl. Okay, you got quarterbacks, big-time quarterbacks leaving. We'll get to that in tall sweep. Leaving the NFC. I mean, it's right there for them. And it's been right there for them. They have to find a way to get over the hump. It starts with Rodgers playing a lot better and complimenting that defense that went in there and did their job. But somehow, some way, you got to find a way to keep the defense together. But again, we'll talk about that in a second. The other big piece of the puzzle, again, that we relayed here on Toss, was Rodgers' decision. Rodgers' decision was going to rely heavily on what the decision on Davante Adams was going to be. If Green Bay did, in fact, franchise tag him, would he accept that? And would they both in good faith continue to work on a new deal, a deal that he has damn well earned? Let's be very clear about that. Davante Adams is the best wide receiver in the NFL, bar none. He's earned that deal. He's earned that deal. We just saw Mike Williams of the Chargers get paid 3 years and $60 million. Over half that contract is guaranteed. If you give him 3 years and $60 million, I mean, what is Davante going to get? It's got to be double that, right? But I digress. Either way, he was looking, in all intents and purposes, he was going to be franchise tagged. We all felt that was the route that the Packers were going to go on with him. The Packers seldom use the franchise tag. They like to get deals done with guys, or in the Ted Thompson era, just let them walk. Guys like Casey Hayward and Micah Hyde come to mind. Getting shivers just thinking about it. Oh, not good memories. But they seldomly use this. The last time they used a franchise tag was in 2010. That was on Ryan Pickett, the picket fence, who doesn't get enough credit for what he did for that defense that went on to win the Super Bowl. He was very vital for that Super Bowl winning team. I know B.J. Raji will get all the flack, but Brian Pickett they called him the picket fence for a reason. He was the guy sucking in all the double teams and triple teams. But again, I digress. That's the last time they used it, back in 2010. They use it on Devontae. They have to get a deal done to make that cap hit much less, even though the salary cap did rise. It rose by a little over $25 million, up to $208.7 million. That's the salary cap. Big increase from that pandemic salary cap that they were having. So that gave the Packers a little bit more breathing room, especially with all the contract restructures they'd been doing. But now you got Rodgers. It's going to be a big money deal. Doesn't matter how it's structured. Doesn't matter the years. It's going to be a big money deal. Davante Adams is going to be a big money deal. You still have guys that you need to sign, that are imperative for you to sign. Devondre Campbell is at the top of that list. You've been searching for a linebacker like him for the better part of a decade. He's an all-pro. You need to pay him and keep him locked up on this squad. But how would they be able to do that? Yes, again, the salary cap rose by over $25 million. That gave the Packers a little bit more flexibility. But you still got a lot of decisions to make and a lot of restructures to make because, again, remember, Jair Alexander is going to come due. He's headed to the last part of his rookie deal. You're going to have to pay him. But Robert Tonyan's going to have to be paid. Make a decision on him. He had an ACL tear. There are a lot of decisions to be made on this team outside of Rodgers and outside of Adams that are imperative to get done in order for this team to stay the Super Bowl contending team they are. People believe that with the two transactions made, getting Rodgers back for at least a couple more years, getting Davante Adams on the franchise tag, hopefully to work out a deal, and I believe they will get a deal done. I know not trade talks. There were no trade talks. I don't want people to misconstrue that. There were no trade talks. But deal talks had broken down, by training camp past season. And I know there have been some off and on discussions, and those discussions really need to ramp up. Yes, you got him on a franchise tag, but you need to get a deal done because he's earned it. It should be a no-brainer. Russ Ball, Brian Gutekunst need to find a way to work their magic to get this all under the cap, and I trust them. They've done it before. But there's going to be a lot of painful decisions to make in order to sign some very important, imperative guys on the squad. So the squad's going to look different. But you got some of your heavy hitters coming back. And that's a great foundation. And it's really extended the Packers' championship window for at least a couple more years. 2 to 3 in my eyes. Depending on what other transactions you make, whether the deals you are able to get done, you're really going to have to hit it in the draft. But overall, a good day for Green Bay. Continuing. You know what? Not continuing because I just had a thought, right? And we do this. This is tossed, right on the spot, off the top of the dome, right? Jordan Love. Now, depending on the framework of the deal for Aaron Rodgers, again, I believe it's going to be guaranteed at least a couple more seasons. Framework will be for longer, but it will be at least for a couple more seasons guaranteed. What do you do with Jordan Love? Does Jordan Love want to be there? Seeing as how he's probably not going to start for at least the next couple of seasons. Do you try to strike while the iron is hot? It's really a relatively weak quarterback class as far as the draft goes this season. Do you try to deal him to a quarterback-needy team who may like the upside of Jordan Love? Can you get a second-round pick for him? Or do you continue to have him sit behind Aaron Rodgers, continue to learn, continue to grow, and really give him that opportunity and see what you've got? Once Rodgers does, in fact, at this point, he's going to be a Packer for life. He'll be 41 in December. So essentially, he's a Packer for life. When he hangs it up, do you give Jordan Love the keys? Are you going to keep him there? That's another intriguing wrinkle to all of this. But in a strange way, and I've said this multiple times, the Jordan Love pick has panned out because you got Aaron Rodgers so fired up and so pissed off at you trading up to get a quarterback that Jordan Love has given the Green Bay Packers 2 years of MVP play out of Aaron Rodgers. So in a roundabout way, that pick has panned out because you've gotten some excellent quarterback play as a result. But I digress. Again, just a thought that just popped into my head off the top of the dome. That's how we do it here on Toss. But continuing here on Toss State of the State, let's get to the NBA world champion, Milwaukee Bucks. We spoke about that last week. They came off a victory against the Hornets, a team they had actually struggled against. They handled business there. Then they were going into a difficult part of the schedule, a gauntlet, if you will, is what I called it, if you will. A gauntlet against Chicago. A gauntlet against Phoenix. A gauntlet against the Heat. Not in that order. It was actually Heat, Bulls, and Suns, but you get the point. 3 straight tough games against upper-tier teams in their respective conferences. And the Bucks handled business. They went 3-0 in that gauntlet. They are now 40-25. As we come into tonight, that's good enough for third in the Eastern Conference. Just a half game back of Philadelphia for 2 in the conference. They were dominating the Oklahoma City Thunder in the third quarter at last check as we record this program on a Tuesday night. Very impressed. Went 4-0 last week. Handled that gauntlet. This team is starting to come together. And now Brooke starting some 5-on-5, getting a little bit of physical contact. He's getting close to coming back. Pat is healing. Still going through that process. But you know, at some point, close to the end of the season, heading into the playoffs, he'll be back. Team is starting to get healthy. Team is starting to hit a stride with their new acquisitions and Carter and Bembry and Ibaka. Grayson Allen has played well, even though he was out tonight with hip soreness. Nothing wrong with giving him a day off. especially against the Thunder. No offense, but let's be real, they're bottom tier. But it wasn't without challenges. Again, the third quarter still is a nemesis for the Bucks. But again, as I said last week, they've been winning in spite just absolutely atrocious third quarters. They continue to dig themselves a hole. They still have not figured it out. And then have to play some furious basketball in the fourth quarter in order to win the game. At some point, you've got to stop doing that to yourself. You got to stop doing that to yourself. But you're 3-0 in that gauntlet. But some really impressive down the stretch clutch moments for the Bucks. Take it against the Heat. They were down 113-99. Okay, they were headed for a loss in that game. And then all of a sudden, they get hot. Drew gets hot. 21-6 run, including a game winner from Drew Holiday. 21-6 run to win the game with a game winner. The Bulls, exciting back and forth ball game there down in Chicago. Bucks were down 102-100. Guess what? 18-10 run to win that game. Tightened the defensive screws. Heightened the offensive IQ and execution. Won that game. And then against the Suns. Another exciting back and forth ball game. Even without Booker and CP3, Suns still came out played well. DeAndre Ayton had 30. Again, Bucks were down 113-110 late in that fourth quarter. Turned up the defense, turned up the offense, and finished with a 22-9 run to win that ball game. Chris Middleton goes off for 44 in that game. 16-27 from the field. 5 threes. And that was a game where they had a relatively decent third quarter. It is a great trait to have as a world champion, but just as a team, to be able to dig your heels in, get defensive stops, execute on the offensive end and score, and go on huge runs to close a game. That is a great trait to have because when the screws get tightened in the playoffs, it's typically a game of runs. You're going to need to go on some runs to close out some of these games and to close out some of these series. And the Bucks have shown a propensity of doing that this season, especially against upper-tier competition. But you have absolutely got to get that third quarter figured out because if you didn't shoot yourself in the foot in the third quarter, you wouldn't have to have these furious comebacks in the fourth. You wouldn't have to go on these runs in the fourth. Again, it's a great trait to have to where you're able to execute that way when you need it most. But you wouldn't have to need that if you figured out your third quarters. It continues to be an issue. I continue to just be absolutely baffled by it. Perplexed is the word I like to use when speaking about it because I truly am perplexed as to how this good of a team can be that bad in that one quarter on a consistent basis. But they're winning regardless of that. Regardless of that. Again, as we record this program on a Tuesday night, the Bucks are handling the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're in the third. They have the Warriors on Saturday, prime time, national televised game. Warriors will still be without Draymond. They're struggling, but if they were ever going to get right, they will love to get right against you. And you cannot allow that to happen. So you got to go out there and you got to handle business in every single quarter. Nonetheless, a very impressive week of Bucks basketball. 4-0 last week, 3-0 in that gauntlet that we spoke about last week. You have to keep moving forward and keep getting better. And that's the state of the state. The Packers get Aaron Rodgers back. Devontae Adams, franchise tag. They need to get Devondre Campbell's deal done. Find some money for Rasul Douglas. They still have some tough decisions to make, but their championship window is still wide open, at least for the next couple of seasons. And the Bucks go 4-0 last week, 3-0 in the gauntlet against Chicago, Phoenix, Miami. Creeping up on that 2 spot and quite possibly that 1 spot in Eastern Conference. I know it doesn't matter. They won as a 3 last year. But they're starting to play some really good basketball against some of the best in the NBA. It's time for us to run the toss sweep. Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow is our Facebook page. We touch on a lot of things there that we don't normally get a chance to right here on this show. So go give us a follow there. Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. That's TON Sports Show. Man, we got to talk about something serious and then we got to talk about an end of an era in the NFL, but we talk about someone's life. Start off this toss sweep. And it's really mind-boggling as to how it took this long for any of us to even hear about this until now. Brittney Griner, superstar in the WNBA, WNBA champion with the Phoenix Mercury. Again, just an absolute superstar, generational talent. She's phenomenal. When she's not playing for the Phoenix Mercury, she's playing in Russia. As so many of these world-class athletes in the WNBA do. They go and play overseas because, let's face it, they don't get paid enough in the WNBA. And they should. She was taken into custody weeks ago. Weeks, plural, in Russia. Apparently, a service dog smelled a different substance on her, and they checked her bag and found out what it was. It was hash oil, a.k.a. cannabis oil, which is a narcotic in Russia. And she was taken into custody and has been in custody since. Her whereabouts to this point are relatively unknown, which is unnerving, especially over in Russia. And we know what's going on in the real world with Russia going into Ukraine. We know how tense relations are between the U.S. and Russia currently because of the sanctions imposed and being led by the United States against Russia, which is putting a lot of Americans in harm's way. How did we not hear about this when it happened? I feel like if it was a male athlete on her level, because remember, she's a superstar, absolute superstar. We would have heard about this the day it happened, the day after it happened, not weeks later. And again, the fact that her whereabouts are relatively unknown. Her wife is calling for her release and for her to come home, as we all are. Because the fact that her whereabouts are relatively unknown is unnerving. I mean, she could potentially serve like 10 years, 5 to 10 years in prison for this. It's unnerving. We don't know where her whereabouts are. And again, you know the tensions between the U.S. and Russia right now. She could very well be a political pawn in all of this. And it's extremely unnerving. So my prayers are definitely going up for Brittney Griner and her family. We hope she's safe. We hope she's healthy. We hope she gets home immediately. Because I can't sit and fathom and think about it. And the fact that we're just now hearing about this weeks later is infuriating. This should have been all over the news. People should have been able to be using resources to get her out of there. So my prayers up to her and her family. I'm praying for a safe and healthy return to the United States. Switching gears from that story, as heavy as that is, these next round of transactions in the NFL is really with a heavy heart for a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans. Not long after it was reported that Aaron Rodgers was, in fact, coming back to the Green Bay Packers, the Denver Broncos have been doing some work of their own, along with the Seattle Seahawks, as they traded for Russell Wilson. Now, Pete Carroll came out in an interview, I believe it was at the Combine, and he was asked if, essentially, if there were trade talks about Russell Wilson. And he tried to deflect and say, oh, there were no trade talks, and Russell's their quarterback, and this, that, and the third. Again, not what I have been hearing. If you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/TOnSportsShow, you'll see that I said, hey, yeah, he says there's no trade talks, but I responded, yeah, none that he's willing to speak about. Because it's no secret, we've been hearing about it for years, that the Broncos would, in fact, go after Aaron Rodgers if the Packers would make him available. Packers had no intentions on ever making him available. There was no framework, no talks, no nothing with the Broncos in that regard. But there was an inquiry, if I could speak, on Russell Wilson's availability. And those talks started going, it started picking up some steam. And when the reality hit that they were not going to get Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers was really leaning, and I know it's talk that, he was thinking about the Broncos. He wanted the Broncos. For him, it was really Green Bay or retire. Retirement was a real option on the table. He did not want to go to a different team. That was truly not his desire. His desire was to remain a Green Bay Packer for the entirety of his career. That is something that means a tremendous amount to him. It was Green Bay or nothing. So when the Denver Broncos realized, well, shoot, we're not going to get Aaron. Packers aren't making him available, and he's talking retirement. If they do make him available, I mean, that's not a real thing. They went to plan B. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect Russell Wilson, but let's be clear. Aaron Rodgers is a 4-time MVP. You're getting high-quality play out of him. Not to say you're not getting good quality play out of Russell Wilson, but there's levels to this. So they started going hard after Russell Wilson. And it worked. They came up with a package that was sufficient. And they're getting this deal done. It was contingent on, obviously, everyone passing their physicals and Russell Wilson signing his no-trade clause, waiving that, in which he did. He also passed his physical. And now all the other players involved have to pass their physicals. But this is the deal. Seattle gets Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, defensive lineman Shelby Harris. They also get 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks and a 5th-round pick. Denver gets Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. So Denver gets the quarterback that they've been coveting. They've needed one badly. Drew Lock simply was just not the answer there. They've really been floundering for a good, consistent quarterback since Peyton Manning. And they finally get a good, consistent quarterback in Russell Wilson. I mean, and that team is tailor-made for Russell Wilson. Because remember how he got his Super Bowls. They had a strong running game and a really strong defense. And what does Denver have? A strong running game and a strong defense. Now, I know they're not going to be so defensive-minded. You have Nathaniel Hackett, who's an offensive mind. Defense is still going to be good. But now you got Hackett there on offense. And he's been working with Matt LaFleur. And Matt LaFleur was under Kyle Shanahan. And Shanahan was under McVay. Oh, excuse me, it's the other way around. McVay was under Shanahan. But, you know, that whole coaching tree, right? They all like to run the football and have a really good defense. And when you look at their teams, you look at the Niners with Shanahan. Shanahan's squad runs the football better than anybody. The only team that really rivals them in running the football are the Ravens. You look at the Rams. Sean McVay's teams are best. They're the Super Bowl champions. But they're best when they're able to run the football, go play action, and they have a strong defense. Look at the Green Bay Packers. Pre-snap motion, running the football with Jones and Dillon, and a really strong defense. You're going to see the exact same thing out in Denver. And now you have Russell Wilson under center. That is a big get, and that makes that division all the more difficult. You're talking Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Carr. And some people are looking at Carr as the worst quarterback in that division. And he's not a terrible quarterback. That's the thing. How can you be the worst quarterback in the division? That division, the AFC West, is going to be fun for the foreseeable future. You're going to have some absolute battles in that division. These types of trades don't come along very often in the NFL. That's a huge one. Again, Broncos get a 4th-round pick and Russell Wilson. Seattle essentially gets a rebuild package, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. But Seattle wasn't done. They released Bobby Wagner. That just happened about 45 minutes ago. Bobby Wagner released, one of the all-time best in that franchise's history, one all-time greats in that franchise history, one of the best linebackers of the game still. Talk about a guy who still has a lot left in the tank. It's not like he's near the end of the road. That guy can still get it done. Now, I've already had Green Bay Packers fans in my ear. Man, should they go after him? They're going to go after him. They should go after him. They can't even figure out Devondre Campbell's contract. Why would they go and make a call to Bobby Wagner right now? You have too many other decisions that you need to make in-house first before you start looking at other free agents. And the thing is, he's not going to be on the market long because of how and when he was released. He can sign with any team before free agency begins. So if he's got a team on the line right now and he likes the deal, he likes the team, he likes the parameters of the deal and the dichotomy of the team, he could sign right then and there. He is not going to be on the market long unless he wants to be. Bobby Wagner is an impact player. He's going to positively impact a player on any defense. I just don't think the Green Bay Packers are going to be looking in his direction. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Devondre Campbell first. They need to get that deal done first. And then they have some difficult decisions to make on everybody else. So let's pump the brakes on Bobby Wagner. Would he be a big get? Absolutely. But you have a lot of decisions in-house to make and a lot of work to do in-house before you try to bring in another player and try to figure that out. But overall, just a blockbuster day in the NFL. Some wheelings, some dealings. Shaping up to be a pretty wild free agency period when that begins. I believe it begins next week. You love to see it. A lot of teams are going to be improved this season. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. It was episode 107 of the Tristain Sports Show Toss. Y'all know where to find me on social media. And if you don't, I'll let you know at the20double. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me in both spaces. Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. That's TON Sports Show. Our Toss on Facebook page. Touching a lot of things there that we don't normally get a chance to on the show. Again, Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. That's TON Sports Show. And of course, TossNationMedia.com. Your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. But, as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T-Squared, Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.